Last week I made a gold leaf protector covered in marbled paper. The design of this gold leaf protector can also be the lid of a box. Today I'll make a box and cover it using a slightly different technique, and then next week I'll line the box, make the lid and do some other finishing touches. Making the box is essentially the same as making the lid, except a box is usually deeper. I started making a spreadsheet that generated a cut list of pieces. However, the best way to make the box is to start with the base and then take measurements from the materials. I was checking the spreadsheet as I went and found that using my approach, the dimensions didn't match the spreadsheet. So unless I can work out why and can fix the spreadsheet, I won't share it. If I do produce a usable spreadsheet, there will be a link in the description below. You usually make a box to put something into it. Thus, the starting point is the inside dimensions. In this case, I'm using 15 centimeters long, 9 centimeters wide, and 6 centimeters deep. I start by cutting the base, which will be 15 by 9 centimeters. I'll cut this in my usual manner. I had a comment recently from someone that thought it sounded dangerous to snap off the end of the blades of snap-off blades. I just wanted to quickly demonstrate how I do it with a pair of pliers. Most knives also have a built-in method for doing this, but I find the pliers faster. The blades have score marks where they're designed to snap. I position the blade so one section is sticking out of the knife and snap it with the pliers. The container the alpha blades come in also has a compartment to put the used pieces of blade into. The sides butt up against the base piece and thus need to have the thickness of the board added to the height. I'm using 2.2mm grey board, and I'll cut some board 62.5mm wide. My eyes aren't good enough to do 0.2 of a millimetre. I always make the short sides the same width as the base piece and the long sides the length of the base plus twice the board thickness. I use the base piece and the sides to measure these lengths rather than measuring them. Once all the pieces are cut, I glue the box together. As usual, I use the trick of laminating the base to a piece of cardstock larger than the base, which makes the box stronger and easier to put together. When I glue out the base piece, I also put some glue on the edges. The board absorbs glue very well. By giving it a coating now, it makes the corners stick together much better later. I start by attaching the ends, then the sides. I put some glue on the ends of the short pieces, which again makes them tack faster. I've cut out all the weighting, but often you have to hold the pieces together for about 30 seconds to get them to stick. I've tried to let you know when I do this by using the wiggly transition. In the videos, I use the wiggly transition to mean I've waited some time, maybe a minute or so, but not 10 minutes. When a significant period of time has to elapse, I use the fade to black transition. Covering the box is the main new technique covered by this video, though it is similar to covering the trays in the clamshell box, but with 4 sides instead of 3. In this approach, the material is wrapped around the box and then turned onto the base and into the box. The width of the covering material is twice the height of the box, plus an allowance to turn in under the base and onto the inside of the base. I'll allow 15 millimeters for these extra pieces, and I'll use the box to measure the height. By drawing in the first line 15 millimeters from the edge, I'll have a line to pitch the box to while gluing it. The length is found by rolling the box along the material with an additional 10 millimeters for an overlap. It's better to be a bit long than short. I'll start by gluing the long edge, leaving the 10 millimeters to wrap onto the short end. After I glue each side, I cut out from the corners in a straight line. This makes it easier to wrap the covering material around the box and must be done at some point anyway. Hopefully the end matches perfectly at a corner or overhangs a little. If there is a slight overhang, just trim it off. After publishing box videos, I usually get asked why I don't use a roller to apply adhesive. Rollers are a great idea, especially if you're making multiples of something. I have some small rollers just in case I have a repetitive job, but they do hold a lot of PVA, so if you clean them regularly, you end up wasting a lot of glue. If you use them often enough, every single day, then you can leave them in the adhesive and seal up the tray. But I've used a brush for so long, it's hard for this old dog to learn new tricks. You'll also notice I'm only using EVA or PVA adhesive, and I'm breaking the rule that you should apply the adhesive to the thinner material. In box making, it's nice to have a fast tacking adhesive so you can work quickly and not have to break to let things dry. PVA applied to board is a fairly dry adhesive. By the time the paper is applied, a relatively small amount of moisture goes into the paper. Hopefully it's not enough to cause the paper to stretch and cause wrinkles. Most covering paper for boxes is heavier weight and won't be a problem to use. It's nice when your box is large enough to fit over the end of a covered brick. It makes mitering the corners on the base and gluing the turn-ins much easier. We'll use the little technique of nicking the miters over the corners to get a perfect fit at the top of the boards. So the knife doesn't cut too long of a miter, angle it slightly away from the box. I'll trim the short ends so they fit down in between the sides, and the long sides will have the small flap of paper that wraps onto the other wall. Doing it this way gives you more space to get inside the box and fit the covering material into the corner. Trim the short edges the width of the board away from the edges, starting at the mitring nick. On the long edges, remove the small nicks so there's no overlapping material on the top of the boards. I find cloth much easier to turn in on boxes than paper. To make it easier with paper, first turn it in dry and take miters out at the bottom of the walls. I'm going to put a thick lining material into the base of the box, so I won't bother about removing any overlapping material. Once everything has been fitted dry, it's time to glue the flaps and turn them in. Do the long sides first so that the ends cover the material that wraps around the inside of the corners. A feature of this technique is that the pattern on the sides is all in the same orientation. So in this wide nonpareil pattern, the combing is downwards on each side, whereas the lid technique will have it upside down on one side and sideways at the ends. But on the narrow lid, this won't be too noticeable. This video got longer than I expected, so I decided to split it into two parts. Next week I'll line the box, make the lid, and put a little base on the box to balance out the top. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, I really appreciate you hitting the big thumbs up button. If you're able and want to, you can support the making of more videos like this through Patreon or with a one-off contribution, and the details are in the description below. To find videos I've made on specific topics or other projects, the best place to go is the Daz Bookbinding Video Guide. It's the index to the channel, and there's a link in the description below. If you want to be notified of my future videos, please hit the subscribe button and select the notification bell. Until next time, cheerio!